Welcome back, and goddamn strap in. This is a crazy story. It's a story of collusion. It's a story of alleged fraud from somebody who has been fined 1.2 million for fraud before, and a Mario Brothers cart. So as for what's going on here, the retro game market has been exploding the last few years. In many ways, thanks to highly publicized auctions like a Super Mario Bros. Cart selling for $2 million. Now, to most of us, we see that on, PC Gamer or whatever, like, oh, look, it's a headline. It's like, Logan Paul and the Pokemon cards. It's just an online thing. We don't really, care or whatever. Maybe it's rare, so it is expensive. But how about what's actually happening is that the whole market is under massive scrutiny and may actually just be a small group of people trying to make themselves a fortune, and maybe this is something that some of those people have done before. Legal disclaimer. This is an interesting legal situation. To be frank, we are, not sure where the sort of fist of justice will come down. So with that disclaimer done, Matt, take us away on this grand journey.
There's so many parts to this. There's a part of games journalism potentially failing massively in all of their coverage of this prior and allowing it to happen, which is a fun angle. There's the angle of, this market has just been completely destroyed. It's been inflated massively. There's, basically anyone who's a retro game collector out of genuine passion has been shafted since 2018, for sure. And the why is just like, this doesn't feel real. Like, this actually feels like a story you'd read about and go, is this real? And then you go to a fact-checking website and it'll go, no, this actually didn't happen. Yeah. But all things point to it actually did happen. So it kind of first broke with a couple of different avenues of investigation. It was Carl Jobs, the YouTuber who primarily does speedrun content, but then also did some legal stuff because of allegations of I can't remember, the old video game champion, Billy Mitchell, who had arcade high scores in the Guinness Book of World Records for Donkey Kong and I think a couple others. But there were allegations of him cheating. Carl got caught saying these things, alleging, and then Billy Mitchell, started a lawsuit against him. And that was the whole thing. So Carl's kind of had a little bit of history in people in retro games being sneaky bastards, for lack of a better term. So he went on this big investigation, released this 52-minute long video talking about it, around the same time that the journalist Seth Abramson for Proof was investigating it. And they just found, market manipulation, a small group of people doing things that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, might frown upon. But for a little bit of history, so in 2017, the most expensive game ever sold at the time was a mint-sealed Super Mario Brothers for $30,000. 4 years later, one sold for $2 million.
Is this art speculation?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the vibe. It's speculation assets, and if you look at like graphs of things, it doesn't look too far from how insane cryptocurrency kind of got, right? Where it's entirely speculative assets. But that's the point. It's it went from 30k, then stuff was selling for 600k, 700k, 800k. I think it was a Super Mario Brothers 64 or Super Mario 64, sorry, sold for 1.5 million just before the SMB cart, but it exploded around the end of 2017, the start of 2018. And that's when Wata Games showed up. Wata Games being the grading company, a new grading company, because the whole point of collectibles is, to determine how well they're kept, you send them off to a grading firm. Yeah. They encase them, they seal them, they give them a grading and say, this is this is mint, or this is 9.6 or 9.8 or 9.4, A+, etc. Different sort of forms of grading, but the point is it's a standard that everyone can look at and go, okay, this is, basically the most perfect copy of this in existence. Yeah. So it's worth more. So there was a VGA beforehand, the Video Game Authority. They were kind of quiet, maybe didn't do the best job, according to a couple of people. But then Wata came in and started, showed up. Coincidentally, at the time, these numbers started to go up. So we're like, hang on. So then you think about what speculation is on speculative assets and how bubbles happen. It's happened in coins, happens in trading cards, happens in comics. Now it's happening in games where the value is going wee. Like the most recent one of those is probably Pokemon cards, for a little bit of background, where it's the same, where the people are kind of trading in on, Pokemon, that's a thing we all know, but it's clearly for the money. If you watch any streamers, they don't care. Some of them sometimes vaguely care about personal value, like the intrinsic value of the card. They're like, oh, that's my favorite Pokemon, I'll keep this one. But most of it's the intrinsic value. It's the value website says this is worth $20,000.
The extrinsic.
So I'm really happy, the extrinsic value of it. So, it's perceived value. It's not what it's actually worth. Yeah, it's what everyone thinks it's worth, which, to be fair, that's kind of a lot of things. But anyway, like bubbles usually start somewhere. They have to start somewhere. Usually from highly publicized auctions or highly publicized sales or headlines, because it's about spreading an idea that these things are worth something. So that kind of happens. So that's kind of some vague background. Carl was saying that in his video that grading companies and auction houses earn the most money from this. There are people who can turn a $10,000 asset into like $1 million asset, and that's a lot of money, but that's one sale. Grading companies take a percentage cut of games they grade based on potential value.
Wow.
Auction houses obviously take a cut of things depending on value. So
that seems like an utter fucking racket.
Yeah, so it's in their benefit. I mean, you can kind of say, well, okay, the auction house is letting the deal happen, facilitating it. Sure, they deserve some money, but when it's a percentage base of the sale, then it's in their interest that the sales are as high as possible. Same with the grading companies. It's in their benefit that the assets are more valuable because then they can take a higher cut. So WADA are one of the only two current grading companies, and Heritage Auctions are the only ones that are basically where all of these sales are happening is through Heritage Auctions. Yeah. And they only sell WADA graded games. As far as anyone can tell, they don't sell like VG. I mean, maybe they do, but the vast majority of sales are WADA graded games. Yeah. VGA have taken a substantial backseat despite being the authority for at least well over a decade at least. I think actually longer than that. But so, and this is where it gets weird because we've established that WADA and Heritage grading company, auction house, they have the most to gain, or they have a lot to gain from market grant. So, surely they should be separate, but they are extremely clearly in bed together because Heritage Auctions agreed to sell WADA graded games before WADA had ever graded a game. Which, you kind of go, well, the auction site wants, the value to be set in stone. Yeah. They want reliability because if they sell something as bad value, it's bad rep. So they would want to go with the authority, but WADA aren't an authority yet. Something doesn't quite add up. So then you look at one of the initial big sales, and that's the Super Mario Brothers cart was bought by 3 people for $100,000 in 2019, which is, over 3 times what a cart sold for in 2017. Highly publicized. I mean, people probably remember it. It was in tons of headlines, and it was all over the news. People going, "Oh, well, this is the next big thing. This is the next big thing." But the person quoted saying that was the WADA founder, Dennis Kahn. He said in all these press releases, "This is going up. This is going up. The hobby's upward trajectory indicates no signs of slowing down." And he's got a lot to gain from pushing that. So the 3 people who bought it were Jim Halperin, the founder of Heritage Auctions, who is listed as an advisor to WADA. So he... it's completely insane. Because he bought a game for a record price, advertised in a press release that this means prices will be going up, but he owns the auction site that's going to be selling these games.
He's the guy who's done it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was a minority stakeholder as well in WADA. So it's all completely in bed. Then one of the other owners is Zach Gig, who's the owner of Just Press Play, another company that sells WADA games, part of this historic deal. And the other is Richard Lessa, who owns one of the largest retro game collections and deals in other collectibles, who identifies himself as a founder of WADA.
So everyone involved is very close to WADA.
Yep.
And all stand to gain by increasing the perceived price of mint or highly graded retro video games.
Yep. So, it is...
And it gets, I imagine, because there's more of this document to go, quite a lot, that this gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
It gets deeper, it gets weirder, and it involves Pawn Stars, the History Channel television show.
Perfect.
But it's like at this point, you look at the facts and you go, okay, so here's a lot of people who have a lot to gain from this market going up, making a sale amongst themselves, because the person who sold it was one of the friends of WADA as well. That's his name he went by Bronte, and he had lent the game to WADA so they could tour after they start up, going, oh, look at this. This is a game we graded. This is the holy grail of games we've graded, and we've borrowed it from our friend. But then he later sold it to other friends.
Yeah, so it's basically just a bunch of mates passing this friggin' cart around, trying to blow up a big market.
Yep, absolutely,
awesome.
Absolutely. It's insane. So like, you can clearly tell, even if maybe nothing illegal has been done at this point, or nothing obviously that could be labeled collusion by fraud, because I don't know, maybe it could be. I don't work at the FTC, but it's certainly, it's
rumbly business.
It's rumbly business. It's certainly rumbly business. So then you move to, the future.
Yeah.
And then you see, well, where are they going to go from 30K to 100K? Where's next? On Pawn Stars, Richard brought it on and asked, I think his name Harrison, the dude who's the star of Pawn Stars. I can't remember.
No idea.
But asked for $1 million. And the dude was like, that doesn't seem right. I don't know about the video game market. Got one of the other people in the shop over and was like, not super sure. It's been growing. So we'll grab an expert. What expert did they grab? Dennis Kahn of Wata Games, the person who graded the game, who had the game for, was touring it around the USA for 9 months.
And who's basically a friend of Rich.
And is a friend of Rich. So, like, the first thing is, realistically, if you wanted to go to an authority on video games, you would go to VGA, the Video Game Authority, because they had been grading games for 10 years, and Wata were, like a year or two new at this point.
Yeah.
Hadn't graded very much. But on this show, there's no indication that they know each other. Like, especially, you can verify the clip on YouTube yourself, like, but they don't mention the person's name. They don't remember Richard's name. They don't mention him being a co-founder of Wata. There's no body language to tell that these people know each other. They look at each other like once, but never again. Even it's like Khan standing with his back to Rich and stuff and talking about this game. And he's talking about the game going, oh, we don't know of any other like sticker sealed copy from this run. It was like the second run, which I think was the American NES test launch. Right. So one of the very first copies of the game, sticker sealed, graded by Wata to be, not literally perfect, but fairly close to it. And he goes, oh, we have never seen anything like this before. This is, this is the holy grail. This is a one-off. This is possibly the most important item of video game history I've seen in my life. Also never seen it before, despite, the fact I've had my hands on it. I've heard of offers that have turned it down, private offers of 300,000 that have been turned down for this kind of thing, even though he's never seen anything like that before. So it's very, very funny. But also, he can tell based on the grading, because it's, they're uniquely marked.
Yeah.
He should have looked at that and went, oh, this is the copy that my friend sold to my other friends and co-workers and co-founders for $100,000.
We all know each other.
200 and something days ago. Cool. Very nice. Very nice. But he said none of that.
Of course.
And then Richard was like, oh no, I'm happy to keep it in my collection if no one's going to buy it for $1 million. I'll keep it in my collection. It's a great piece of video game history. Except he wasn't the sole owner, and he didn't actually have it at that time. It was, according to press releases, in the Heritage Auctions vault, because Jim Halpern was part of the sale, and he owns Heritage Auctions. They kept it there until it was needed for press publicity. So Richard, like, the story here goes, Richard goes to Heritage Auctions, goes, hello, I'm going to take this copy onto this TV show. Can I have it, please? And then he takes it to the TV show, pretends he's the sole owner, talks about selling it himself for $1 million on live television in the USA, and just like no indication of anything is going on behind the scenes. It wasn't even in his collection. He wasn't allowed anywhere near it until he needed it. So Pawn Stars ended up being a massive advertisement for that specific cart.
So the real victim is the History Channel.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that they should have done more research. Yeah.
And this next bit seems rather fishy to me.
Yeah,
a little bit fishy.
This stuff's great. So, like, Pawn Stars was a big advertisement for this game. It, went from, this was a headline earlier in the year for 100K. He's now brought it onto, television in the USA and said, it's $1 million. Like, I want $1 million for it. Dennis Kahn, who is his friend and stands to gain from the price of this going up, says, I've seen offers for $300,000 turned down and there's no ceiling on it. basically saying this could go for $1 million. I don't know. Maybe it could. I'm the expert. I'm probably right. Also, I would get a substantial amount of money from it going for $1 million, but let's not think about that. But the next part is, and it was Seth Abramson of Proof who found this, I believe. But Richard Lecca communicated to friends on Facebook after his appearance on Pawn Stars. He sent a image macro of, I can't remember his name. What's the
Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil, yeah, of course, yeah. Dr. Evil with his little pinky going $1 million.
Yeah.
He sent a picture of that. You could go, maybe he just typed $1 million into, Giphy or whatever and just hit a button. But the implication there is it was a play. It was a ploy. It was this awful, thing. So Wada founders got lied to press that all these people were involved. He said, "Oh yeah, no, this was like this. I've never seen this. This is worth $1 million. Also, my friend owns it, and my other friend owns it, and my other friend owns it, and also this is all a market that, if this market goes up, I literally make money off." It's insane. And there's a kind of, because to follow along with Carl's investigation and Carl's thoughts, he went in to say about how it's not about collectors anymore. It's about assets. It's about investors. So he finds that a WADA value punch-out cartridge sold to a platform for buying and selling equity shares and collectible assets called Rally. So it's not about collecting anymore. It's about investing in speculative assets. Buy low, sell high, make money. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be Bitcoin, could be copper, could be aluminium, could be retro video games sealed in a box, whatever.
We've got sponsorship offers from Rally before.
I mean, there you go. There you go.
I'm fairly sure it was a similar thing anyway. And I looked, I was like, okay, is this money bullshit where if I actually accept this sponsorship, I'm going to mislead our viewers and potentially lose the money? Well, I'm deleting that email.
Yep. No, that was the ultimately the correct thing to do. So there's another related story, which is Eric Narman, who is as an avid collector, bought over $1 million of retro games in 2019. Except this was all public. This was all very publicized. All of the the games journalists covering it were calling him an avid collector, saying he bought them when none of that was true. He didn't buy them. Wow. The money was put up by equity firms and his friends for equity in this shared amount of this collection. He's not an avid collector. He basically never bought games before. Was he a dentist or something like that? But he was just someone who was there to make money, and he's been very open about that. Otherwise, he's happy to talk on podcasts about this being a market that he's forming to make gain on by being one of the first people to make big purchases there. And then in the press articles, WADA and Heritage founders were asked for comment because they're related, and they're like, "Yeah, this fucking video games worth so much. Yeah, no one ever think about how much this is going to make us." Which is, kind of where the failing of journalists comes in. They should have went, follow the money, maybe. Follow the money. Look into any of these people. They didn't. And to be fair, likely just a quick parroting of a press release. So
basically, I mean, that's what most of games journalism. It's games repostism. Right, yeah. And then you look at so many of the game sites, and you look at a little citation, and it's actually somebody else's repost of a press release.
Yeah,
and it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
it's easy to make that mistake. But I mean, follow the money, go try to find the primary sources. That's how to do this shit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is kind of another thing, because that's all kind of relatively self-contained in that all of the WATA initial founders, initial bullshit, all the Pawn Star stuff was all kind of speaks for itself and how bad it is. But then you look a little bit into the past and you find that Heritage had been under fire before for using shill bidding, which is another way to pump up the value of assets in a market, because it literally just means you get someone to bid it up, not naturally.
Yeah.
Which is, let's say, highly frowned upon. Because Heritage previously had a lawsuit in which Jim Halperin lied under oath about Heritage using a shill bidder. He said something along the lines of, this person, doesn't exist. This alias doesn't exist. And then later corrected and said, oh no, this alias is actually an affiliate of Heritage Auctions.
Yeah, it would be like if you got one of your friends to put fake bids on an eBay listing that you had, and obviously they're never going to actually do it and pay
Yeah.
for the thing, but it's all just to get other people to see that activity and like, oh wow, this is a hot deal.
Yeah. 100 bids on this, this nothing. It must be worth something. Oh shit.
Yeah.
So that just it keeps happening. And then Carl actually found a source that claimed, according to the source's father, told stories about Jim Halpern because they worked together. But Halpern would manipulate the market by selling his own collectibles to himself for higher prices. So he would buy something for 3,000, sell it via his own auction firm to himself for $6,000, and then it's on record that sold for $6,000. So that's its clear value. And he would just keep doing that to inflate prices. I mean, I believe Heritage Auctions has denied that, so I'm not sure what the actual status of that is. But it comes from someone who's has little reason to lie about it outside of for clout. Yeah. So it's not a complete confirm, but
so next then we've got lies.
Yep.
From Wata. Interesting things like Wata saying that employees are not allowed to own or sell Wata graded games.
Yep.
Which seems to definitely not be the case. You know, as you say, but Jeff Meyer, the founder of Go Collect, is a director of Wata and sold Wata graded games through Heritage.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a asterisk on this one because while everyone else involved has, blanket denied with no further explanation, like Wata and Heritage statements have just been, we wish we'd been spoken to before publication because we, vehemently deny these claims on all fronts. Jeff's the only person who actually went, hang on, I can explain, and laid out like a timeline for things. So initially the story was that he bought a lot of games from Dane Anderson, who was the owner of a retro game database called Nintendo Age. He bought them all, Wata graded them all, gave them their own unique name because it was this renowned collector had collected them all and sold them to another person in the same state of Carolina. So they went,
it's called the Carolina Collection to make it seem like, oh wow.
Yes, they call it the Carolina Collection, and you're like, oh, that's a unique name. That adds a little bit of prestige, a little bit of value, a little bit of a story to this, thus increasing its value. And then Jeff sold them via Heritage without disclosing his relationship to Wata, which was, a director. It wasn't at the beginning, but he was eventually a director of Wata, which isn't super tied as much as like a CEO or something, but he's involved. He's involved. And he talks about Wata in the third person, despite being involved, which implies he wants a little bit of distance.
Yeah.
He's not, the great firm that I know very well and I'm friends with Wata. He's like, the relationship with Wata. Stuff like that. Wata talk about the Carolina Collection without disclosing they're involved with the owner. And then that sold for over $500,000. That collection. Or at least the first lot of that collection. It's worth substantially more overall. Sure. Something that Jeff actually admits now. He says that $500K now would be worth way more if he'd held on to it a little bit. But he also, when he bought Nintendo Age from Dane Anderson, he shut it down and moved that to his own site, which feels aggressive if you're moving into a market in a sense, but also could be looked at as he's controlling the flow of information. So you've got all these people making false information, or not, making their own information, making their own stories up as they go. And then you've got someone else who's allegedly coming in and shutting down other sources. And if you control the information of what something's worth, you control what it's worth.
Yes, especially in a market like this.
Yeah, that's what they've done. So that, and then Dane Anderson was an executive officer of Wata at its founding. So that was someone involved with Wata selling games to someone involved with Wata, getting them graded by the same firm, and then selling them through Heritage Auctions, their partner, without ever making it super apparent that this was it, and using these press releases to bump up the market. But then Jeff responded, said he actually were never involved with Wata at the same time Dane Anderson was. They didn't actually know each other until the sale was confirmed. Like, they'd never met in person, and he never hid his status. He just wasn't he wasn't screaming it from the rooftops, but he never went out of his way to delete anything that said he was a minor investor or challenge it. He was like, yeah, I'm a minor investor in Wata, I've done it before. And then also he claims that the Nintendo Age shutdown was out of technical difficulties, where he didn't know how to maintain it at the time. And he moved the data to Go Collect, so it was still available. And that was his plan, his idea. And then he also suggested he got them graded by Wata for a reason, because VGA's grading was unsatisfactory in his opinion, because they told They told someone else. They told Dane Anderson to remove the seal from a game because the seal was low quality, and in VGA's opinion, that did more damage to the overall grading as they did it, because grading is very subjective.
Yeah.
But in most collectible hobbies, the idea of a seal is substantially more important than the quality of the seal, and they're usually graded differently. So you'll go, oh, well, this copy's in immaculate condition. It gets a massive bonus for having a seal, but the seal's kind of shitty. But it's still a net gain over having no seal. And they told him, so he's like, no.
He just knows that's bullshit.
Literally think water does it better. That's why. So, you know, and he also talks about the Carolina collection, the naming being common practice, which is, you know, all fine, all good, all sound. But, like, so any form of collusion from Jeff's, like, been disputed. He's reasonably went, here's a good reason. So, you know, maybe you'll want to have, like, FTC investigations into the past and into, like, the facts of the matter. But he's relatively in the clear compared to other people involved, because this doesn't fucking end.
Of course.
It doesn't end. There's so many people involved and so many people trying to make money.
So Mark Haspel.
Yep. Mark Haspel is a member of what? I believe he's a director or a co-founder. Or no, I can't remember specific, but he is at least an employee. He's at least involved. He never bought games until Wata showed up, and he was a part of it. And then he ran around conventions buying up stacks of sealed games, reached out to loads of collectors buying sealed games off them. So, you know, that in itself is fine if you're a collector and you speculate a bubble's going to come. That's perfectly reasonable. But then when you're related to the firm, that's where you have problems, of course. And the reason the reason Mark was looked into was actually a fun one. Seth Abramson of Proof was just thinking about the stories involved, and he was cleaning up some stuff that he had in boxes, or I think it was for a move or for a tidy up or something. And he found Mark Haspel's name on a sticky note attached to a retro Atari game he bought.
Oh, that's wild.
And then he went, I know that name.
Yeah.
Did I?
I've been looking into that.
Yeah. Did I buy a game graded by a firm from someone who works from the firm? Okay, let's investigate. And he found that Mark Haspel's been selling over $40,000 worth of Wata graded Atari games on eBay. But Atari games are like worth a lot less, but this is more skimming off the side thing. Yeah. Because no one's going to really pay attention if they're just buying Atari games on eBay versus heritage auction sales, where they'll be going, these are big public ones.
And if you're somebody working at this grading firm, you are not supposed to own and sell things graded by the firm.
Like there's perfectly like logical explanations for, like, you know, how there's a set of principles you could lay out where that's okay. Where, you know, maybe they're big enough, maybe he's never seen them be graded, you know, not necessarily fraudulent in itself, but
fishiness.
Fishiness.
The smell of fish is everywhere.
Yeah, and the founder of Wata, Dennis Kahn, the current leader, goes to the press every time is appropriate and goes, Wata employees are not allowed to own or sell Wata graded games. Yeah. Which means that he's lying to the press consistently all the time. Maybe Mark's acting under his nose, but maybe not. And that's kind of where the problem is. He's clearly not got a tight enough hold on his own operation.
So fishy.
Yep. And if there's fuck me like okay, so if there's any doubt whatsoever that this is basically collusion and fraud, trying to bump up a speculative market so they can all profit and then fuck off. There's a coin bubble happened in the 80s. The FTC got involved, you know, a bunch of grading companies cropped up initially. The value started to rise, and then it just went bang and exploded. It disappeared overnight because all these investment like hedge funds come in. They invested. Same reason. It wasn't coin collectors. It was investors coming in.
Yes.
To catch up on the speculation. So the FTC went, no. Some of these grading companies are misleading customers. Guess who's involved? Jim Halperin. He founded one of the grading companies that was found to be over-grading coins. And Heritage Capital Corp, Heritage, were also involved. And Heritage Corp and NCI were fined $1.2 million. There were other grading companies involved. It wasn't just Jim, but he was fined $1.2 million. And also, Jim Halperin literally wrote the book on how to grade coins. The bubble happened in the late 80s. He wrote the book in 85. Grading companies popped up using his techniques. by the time it was the early 90s, the coin bubble was destroyed. Wow. Jim Halpern was fined $1.2 million, but didn't disappear. Started working on, the heritage auctions, now doing the same thing in games, which is not a statement of, not a statement of criminality, but, what's the saying? Like, if it quacks like a duck,
yeah,
it must be a duck.
It's fishy bullshit, and seemingly they have co-opted the large headlines and stuff, and they're basically using the games journalists who are just reposting press releases and aren't really, following the money.
Yep, that's exactly it. There's a couple things the response from Wada Games being the claims are completely baseless and defamatory, and we should have been contacted so we could, reply and correct. Heritage says it wishes it had the opportunity to respond because there's, inaccurate conclusions and misstatements of facts, and they refute any allegation that it or its officers are involved in shill bidding or market manipulation or any similarly illegal or unethical practices. But it's the kind of thing where you could say that, but the proof is what you can't really.
The whole thing going on with Pawn Stars is quite.
Yeah.
There's this Jim guy.
Yep.
Who's involved in the coin bubble, and now seemingly the same thing is happening again. Yep. And it all just seems very, it's like, is it just a tight-knit community, or is it a bunch of people colluding? There's a few things that do suggest it's the latter.
That's the thing that will make this story, I think, a little bit messy when it comes to a final conclusion.
Yeah.
Because, for example, and this is my opinion versus anything else, based on what I've read and what I've researched, following up on Seth's stuff, but it seems like Jeff Meyer, his involvement was the case of it being, and actually, I really like the way you put it, a tight-knit community, where it seems that this was a problem of, he knew people, he was told to talk to specific people, he found people who were in this small community, and then, ended up making a bunch of money, but he was personally invested, there was no, fraudulent activity going on, no, collusion going on, it was just community stuff. But then you look at the specific stuff that Jim, Richard, and Zach to an extent, but Dennis Kahn, the owner of Wada, they're all clearly way too close to the story and leaving out far too many facts for this to be anything but literal collusion. And this is getting a little bit away from video game news in a sense, because the vast majority of it here is just, this could be replace video games with, coins like Jim did in the 80s. But it's a thing where this stuff completely shits on consumers, because the retro games market is now, not irreversibly, but it's wrecked.
Yeah.
Actual collectors who do it out of passion are just, they're getting the bad end of this until the bubble bursts, which, I imagine will be very soon once this comes out. But, it's the idea of any genuine collectors are now looking at prices that were 3 figures, and they're now 5 figures or 6 figures.
Wild.
And there's a way to make money on that, which you can kind of, any collectors with sealed Wada graded games might go, ooh, can I make money for this bursts at the expense of hedge funds? Sure, maybe, but the point is that this market has just been wrecked by these, these people coming in trying to make money for themselves by ruining a collectible market. Because then you have to look and see, well, are Wada, if they're doing the press side wrong, are they maybe grading things favorably? Are they overgrading overall? And I feel like that's what the FTC are going to come out and say. Because I think actually Carl did one thing where he looked at a copy of, I think it was Tomb Raider maybe? But he looked at a copy of a game available on the Heritage Auction site, looked at the grading, looked at the picture of the box, went, what? The seal was damaged and torn in a couple different places. It has substantial holes in it. There's dirt on the actual cover. And it was rated a 9 point something. And he's like, what the? That is clearly overgraded. Anyone could look at that and say that is just not correct. And this is the authority who've established themselves in authority through abusing the fact games journalists will go, ooh, Super Mario Brothers sold for $2 million. Let's fucking go. This is a great headline. This is a great article. Our great industry is finally worth something. All retro games are so great. And then you think, well, how many fucking copies of Super Mario Brothers were printed? It's sold 50 million copies.
Yeah, and then you just start to think like, right, is this just a bunch of business twats coming in and trying to identify that people have a genuine care and a passion for something and then just fucking skim money off us?
Yep, here you go. Here's the takeaway. Video games and retro game collectors are being exploited by a bunch of fraudulent money-grabbing bastards.
Allegedly.
Legal disclaimer, allegedly. Yeah, so that's the feel of it all. That's the feel of it. It's such a nuts story that it was really fun to get into, but I mean,
I didn't expect Pawn Stars to be a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, actually, one of the things is Seth Abramson in his reporting puts a lot of he went into detail on the Pawn Star stuff and went, it's definitely a deep feeling of either the team at History Channel or some form of collusion on their part, because there's no way they didn't do like some research into the people involved, or if they didn't, they should have, because they went, oh, here's a co-founder of Wata on to sell a Wata Grid game. Who will we get on to talk about how valuable it is?
But
the Wata founder.
It's reality TV and it's a good story.
Yep, it was a great story. It was a man going, this is worth $1 million. Prove me wrong. And then they got an expert in to go, this could be worth $1 million. And I was like, ooh, are we witnessing, the birth of a whole new collectible market of retro video games?
And then cut to little interview for color with all of the people involved. Yep. Do the full reality TV show format and episode. There we go.
Yep.
Fuckers.
Yeah, and then you look at like it's interesting because I think the fact that it took a speedrunning YouTuber to kind of blow the lid off this through a little bit of investigation implies that it wasn't hard, because a lot of his work was literally looking at established facts and looking at SEC filings. Again, following the money and following the people. Thinking about their motives. Okay, so why is the founder of this talking about who's involved in the sale? Who are they? Who are the directors of Wata Games? Can any names line up?
Basically, classic. Get a bunch of pictures of the people, put them up. So the little bits of string, but classic detective work.
Yep. It's
the old methods work.
Yeah, the old methods certainly work, but it's this idea of it almost comes across as cynical to me, where it's the idea of don't accept a story at face value. Never accept a story at face value, because if someone's telling you something, there's a reason they're telling it to you. So you just go, well, why are you telling me this? Why are you telling me Super Mario Bros. Is worth $1 million, even though it sold 50 million copies?
Yeah. So the real takeaway is, if something seems silly to you, if you see a headline saying that Mario Brothers is worth, or Super Mario Bros. Is worth 2 million, and you think, well, that doesn't make that much sense to me. Guess what? High chance you're right.
Yeah, especially if you're one of those people with like a sealed box of them in the garage from the like late 80s or something. You're like, oh yeah, no, I remember there being thousands of those.
Yeah, there we go. I'd say a big props to Carl and to Seth for diving into the story, blowing the lid on it, and hopefully, if a few more of us in YouTube cover it, then maybe some of the big websites cover it, and we can get a handle on this, rein it in, and things get reasonable again. Yeah, because I think I
think there's a kind of through line to draw here. What is the one thing that we actually literally just got done talking about with Activision Blizzard and Hearthstone is all of the marketing people, all of the sales people, all of the money people coming in and ruining the market, hurting video games as a whole. This is the same idea, but from a very different perspective and a very different outcome. So basically, if someone comes into your industry and wants to make money, tell them to get out.
Yeah, patterns and principles repeat. Yep. We should get good at recognizing them.
Yep, so absolutely.
There you go. That's it. I mean, there's not much of a firm conclusion. I think it's not like you are going to go and buy a $2 million Mario Bros. Cart, but it's probably good we know this shit's going on. So that's it for the video. Definitely a longer one. So I hope you enjoyed this wild dive into craziness. And that's it. So thanks for watching. See you next time.